Hi there, my name's Justine Light. I am from Daylight Consulting, one of three partners in the Learning English with CBC project. In addition to myself, there is CBC Edmonton and Calgary, and the project is funded by the Alberta government through the Jobs, Skills, Training and Labour Ministry. I'm going to talk to you today just for about 10 minutes about the project, its resources, and how it can support immigrants with learning language. So what is the project? Well, the project supports Alberta's vision of immigration, that immigrants and families will choose to live in Alberta if they're able to participate fully in community life, if they receive the community supports that they need to settle and adapt. And as you know, language learning in itself is a significant factor in immigrant settlement and integration. Furthermore, I think in this project, we try to take language learning beyond sort of simple grammar instruction or pronunciation instruction and into the world of real language and into the water cooler topics that Albertans are really interested in. And I'll talk about this at some length later. So who is the target group for the Learning English with CBC project? So we are looking at two key target groups for the project. First of all, the materials support teachers for those immigrant learners who are already in a classroom setting, and they provide an Alberta-based resource for those learners. But importantly, this project doesn't stop there, and it targets, secondly, for those for whom access to classroom learning is not always possible. And so that means that includes learners in rural communities where limited classroom instruction may be available, learners who have children and do not have daycare opportunities and therefore are unable to attend a regular classroom setting, immigrants who are already in the workforce but still working and wanting to work to improve their language skills, among others. So this project supports the Job Skills Training and Labour goal of exploring open and accessible learning as an alternative to classroom-based delivery. All the materials in this project are designed to be used in a self-contained way. So that means that although they make great classroom learning materials and we're happy and excited to hear about teachers enjoying using them in the classroom, the way that the materials have been designed ensures that learners are able to study independently. All the instructions are there, the transcript of the spoken language is there, and the answer keys are there. So they make a great classroom learning activity for those who don't have that same access for whatever reason. So these materials focus on local news derived from CBC Edmonton and Calgary. And so it's important to just consider for a moment the connection between those news stories and learning English. So we've already talked about the importance of language training, but it's good to think about language training as the ability to understand and speak English as it impacts newcomers, not just in terms of their proficiency in the language, but in terms of their potential for integration and settlement in their new community in Alberta, for their job opportunities and their overall earnings. And as part of this, it's critical to think of language as more than just book learning. Think about language as your ability to engage in small talk in the workplace lunchroom. Learners need to learn language that's socially appropriate in order for them to integrate into the workplace and into the community at a deeper level. An understanding of the kinds of things that Albertans are talking about and what's appropriate to talk about and the background knowledge in those topic areas are really crucial. Learners have lots of different language and educational backgrounds, and so we aim to use local and national and international news as the basis of the learning materials that can bridge many of these gaps. So that's the background stuff and orientation to the project. So all of these materials are housed online at the cbc.ca/Edmonton website, and the URL is right there at the top of the slide. And there's the same, I'll show you the similar one for Calgary. So on the website, when you go to the home page or the landing page of the Learning English project, you'll see a photograph of the CBC team who work on the project, a menu of the items available for learners, and big blue buttons that access the latest weekly newscast and the latest monthly learning plans. There's also information about the project, information for teachers. If you have volunteer teachers in your communities, that might be useful information on more about how to use the materials in the classroom, information about CBC journalists who work on the project. And here is the Calgary page. You'll see it's very similar. And again, the URL is at the top of the slide there. And you'll see the big blue buttons are there. And CBC Calgary prepares its own set of weekly news stories, and the monthly learning plans have shared content between the two regional CBC stations. So in any given month, we're either using content that came from CBC Edmonton or content that came from CBC Calgary. So what are the weekly news learning plans? So topics each week, there are 3, are chosen to support learners' integration into Alberta. So for example, and this is done collaboratively between Daylight Consulting and CBC Edmonton, CBC Calgary. And for example, here you can see just examples from the past: winter driving, bylaws, job interview tips. Learners need information that represent the water cooler topics, the top of mind stories. So we also cover stories such as the downtown arena in Edmonton, stories, crime stories from each centre, things that Albertans are likely to be talking about. I go back to that idea of the lunchroom in the workplace. If people are talking about, a big news story that happened the week before and your access to the news in English is limited, that's a barrier to participating in those great opportunities to participate in your workplace and in your community. So the weekly news learning plans include 3 stories. That's what the front page of them looks like on the right-hand side there. The stories are read at a reduced pace. Rosa Marcatelli reads those stories in Calgary. Don Bell reads them in Edmonton. They're slightly slowed down. There are vocabulary activities to help with some of the difficult words. There are listening activities to check for comprehension. There is a transcript, and there are answer keys. Those learning plans are appropriate for learners whose language level is at approximately CLB4. So that is a high beginner or a very low intermediate. So they're a really great resource. There aren't many things out there where you can learn about Edmonton, learn about Calgary, learn about the province at that low level. And I just put in an example here of what a page might look like from that learning plan. You'll see there that there is vocabulary. Preferred that the students would do that ahead of listening. And then there is a listening activity and a discussion question. Now, why did we include a discussion question if we think learners might be studying alone? Well, those are the kinds of things that are likely to be discussion topics around the water cooler that would come along from listening to that story on the news. So even for independent learners who might be the only person studying in their family, understanding how the news leads to discussion is a really crucial part of being able to take that learning into the workplace, into the broader community. Now, the monthly learning plans are thematic. We cover topics on the themes of employment, human interest stories, and as I mentioned, they come from Calgary and Edmonton. They are CLB based and they're suitable for higher level learners, CLB 6+, so that is getting towards high intermediate. They are competency and strategy based, so they are very involved. They are 30 pages long. So whereas your weekly learning plans may only be 9 to 10 pages long and they come out each week, the monthlies are intended to provide a substantial learning opportunity for a higher intermediate learner over a month. So there is reading and writing and so many different aspects of language learning. Here's the beginning page of the monthly learning plans, and topics for this include things like interview strategies, preventing influenza, are you a hard worker or a workaholic, communication between men and women in the workplace. And you'll see here that all the different aspects and language activities of the monthly learning plans are laid out at the beginning. Here's a typical page. Now this is a listening activity. I thought I'd put it here as a contrast to the previous. You'll see the language is much denser. There's much more writing, more in difficult instructions. And in this case, the students are listening to the monthly audio and they are taking notes. They're not just answering questions. So a much higher level of language. So for the monthly learning plans, we use an audio that comes directly from the radio. It's not slowed down, it's just there in its regular radio format, so a lot more challenging for listening. So through these two alternatives, then that means that immigrants that come into your agencies who are looking for independent learning opportunities, where they can improve their language, particularly at those levels, will be able to study both at that high beginner or that high intermediate level. And really the materials are very flexible. There may be parts of the monthly lesson that are suitable even for learners at benchmark 7 and 8, because there are activities that focus on writing, reading, grammar. So the learning plans are very easy to use. You click on the download buttons. All the plans that we've ever created since 2011 on this project are archived. All the audios can be played online or downloaded. And so they provide a great resource over the 3 years that we've been doing them. There's quite a library there of independent study materials for those perhaps with less access to classroom learning to still be able to improve their language skills. If you have any questions or any follow-up inquiries about the project, please don't hesitate to contact me. My name again is Justine Light, and this is my email, jplight@shaw.ca, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.